Most people will earn more money this year than they did last year, and most of them will end up with nothing more to show for it. Not because they failed, because they were never shown the mechanism that quietly prevents wealth from forming. No matter how much income stays, Solomon observed this pattern thousands of years ago and recorded it not as a warning about poverty, but as a warning about the invisible ceiling that follows every earner who never learns to separate income from wealth. Earning more is not the answer. It never was. If this challenges you, stay until the end. There is something that happens to almost every working person, and almost no one talks about it clearly. You earn more money, life gets a little better. Then a little more, then a little more again. And yet, somehow, the financial pressure never quite leaves. The stress does not disappear. The savings do not grow the way the numbers suggest they should. You look at what you earn today compared to 5 years ago, and the difference is real. But the feeling of financial stability, of quiet security, has not arrived the way you expected it to. This is not a personal failure. It is not a character flaw, and it is not unique to you. It is a pattern, a very old pattern. One that has repeated itself across centuries, across cultures, across every economic era. And the people who studied it most carefully were not financial advisors. They were not economists. They were ancient observers of human behavior who watched what money did to people and what people did to money over generations. What they recorded was not complex. It was, in fact, deeply simple. But it required a specific kind of honesty to accept. Income and wealth are not the same thing. Most people live as if they are. Most people believe that if income increases, wealth increases alongside it. This assumption is so embedded in modern life that it rarely gets questioned. It feels logical. Earn more, have more, work harder, accumulate more. Progress is linear, but it is not. Look at what actually happens. A person starts their career. The salary is modest. Life is structured around that modest income. Then, a promotion arrives. The salary increases. And almost immediately, not after careful thought, but almost reflexively, life expands to match it. A better apartment, a newer car, more frequent dining out, an upgraded phone, more subscriptions, more obligations. Then another raise arrives. And life expands again. This is not a responsibility. This is the natural human response to increased resources. It feels like progress. It looks like progress. The house is bigger. The car is newer. The vacations are more frequent. From the outside, and even from the inside, this looks like someone building a better life. But something is being built that goes unnoticed. A ceiling. Not a physical one, not one that can be seen or touched, but a financial ceiling, a structural limit that determines exactly how wealthy a person can become, regardless of what they earn. And modern life does not warn you about this ceiling. It encourages you to build it higher and higher, faster and faster, without ever explaining what it is costing you. This pattern is not new. Long before modern economies existed, long before salary structures and mortgage systems and consumer credit, ancient observers documented this exact mechanism. In the wisdom literature of the ancient world, particularly in the writings attributed to Solomon, a figure studied not only for his wealth, but for his recorded observations about how wealth behaves, the principle is stated with remarkable clarity. Solomon, according to ancient texts, was not simply a wealthy man. He was a structured thinker about wealth. The proverbs attributed to him do not celebrate earning. They do not glorify income. They speak consistently and repeatedly about something different. They speak about control, about preservation, about the discipline of keeping what comes in rather than expanding to consume it. One principle, recorded in the ancient Hebrew wisdom tradition, describes the gradual accumulation of the disciplined person as something that grows steadily, reliably, quietly, not quickly, not visibly, quietly. The plans of the diligent lead to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Proverbs 21:5. This is not a financial metaphor, it is a behavioral description. It is the observation of a pattern that existed then and exists now. The hasty expansion of lifestyle in response to income is not a modern problem. It is a human pattern, and the ancient wealth thinkers identified it, named it, and built entire systems of behavior around avoiding it. What they understood, which most modern people do not, is that wealth is structural. It is not an event. It is not a salary level. It is not a number. It is a relationship. Specifically, the relationship between what comes in and what is allowed to expand outward. Now, consider the assumption most people carry. The assumption is this: I am not wealthy yet because I do not earn enough. If my income were higher, I would have more. If I made more money, my financial situation would improve. This feels so reasonable that questioning it seems almost absurd. But here is what the data of human behavior, observed over centuries, consistently shows. Most people who increase their income do not increase their wealth proportionally. Some increase their income dramatically and see almost no increase in actual net worth. The income rises, the lifestyle rises with it. And the gap to space between what comes in and what is kept remains the same, or shrinks. There are people earning 3 times what their neighbors earn, living with less financial security. There are families on modest incomes who, over decades, accumulate genuine, durable wealth. Not because of secret strategies, not because of special access, but because of one structural behavior that separates these two groups completely. One group raises their lifestyle when income rises. The other group raises their assets when income rises. That single difference, practiced consistently over years, produces an entirely different financial reality. This is the mechanism. This is what we are naming the invisible wealth ceiling. Every person has one. It is not set by income. It is set by lifestyle. Your ceiling is the point at which your expenses, obligations, and lifestyle commitments consume the majority of what you earn, leaving no meaningful surplus to accumulate. When income rises to meet that ceiling and lifestyle expands the ceiling upward at the same speed, wealth never forms. The ceiling is invisible because it feels like progress. Every expansion of lifestyle feels like a reward for effort. Every upgrade feels deserved. And in a social sense, it is often celebrated. Peers validate it. Culture encourages it. The upgraded home, the newer vehicle, the visible markers of advancement, these are the signals modern society uses to measure progress. But the ancient wealth observer sees something different. He sees a man raising the roof of his own prison and calling it growth. Wealth is built in silence, not in display. Here is the first structural layer of how the ceiling operates. Wealth grows only when income grows faster than lifestyle. This is the foundation of the mechanism. It is not complicated. It does not require advanced financial knowledge. It requires one simple, consistent discipline. When income increases, lifestyle must not increase at the same rate. If income grows by 20% and lifestyle grows by 20%, wealth remains at 0. If income grows by 20% and lifestyle grows by 5%, the gap, 15%, becomes wealth. That gap is everything. That gap, repeated over months and years, compounding quietly and without announcement, is how families build durable financial security across generations. Not through inheritance, not through extraordinary income, through the persistent, disciplined management of that gap. This is what Solomon meant when he wrote about the ant, a creature with no ruler, no overseer, no external authority forcing discipline, yet one that stores in summer what it will need in winter. The ant does not consume everything available to it in the moment of abundance. It preserves, it accumulates. It operates on a longer time horizon than the immediate moment demands. Most people operate only in the immediate moment. Income arrives. Life adjusts upward to meet it. The cycle repeats. And the ceiling follows them everywhere they go, rising just fast enough to prevent anything from being kept. Now comes an observation that surprises most people when they first encounter it. The person who appears wealthy is often not, and the person who appears ordinary is often not. This is not a poetic observation. It is a structural reality. High lifestyle spending is visible. A large house is visible. A premium car is visible. Expensive clothing is visible. These signals communicate financial success in a language that culture reads immediately. And so the person who spends aggressively on visible things appears, to every social observer, to be doing very well. But appearances are built on spending, and spending is the opposite of accumulation. The disciplined family, the one quietly managing the gap year after year, often looks unremarkable from the outside. Their home is adequate, not impressive. Their vehicle is reliable, not prestigious. Their life does not signal excess. And because wealth is silent, because it sits in assets and accounts and instruments that carry no visual weight, it is invisible to the outside world. Wealth and appearance, in most cases, move in opposite directions. This is the identity shock that the ancient wealth traditions understood and that modern culture has almost entirely lost. Income is loud. Wealth is quiet. The man who announces his prosperity through lifestyle is usually not building it. The man who lives below what he earns, who remains, for years, in the same quiet discipline is building something that will not be visible until much later, if it becomes visible at all. Because the truly disciplined do not need it to be visible. Something is being constructed beneath the surface of this pattern. Something that explains why the ceiling exists not just financially, but psychologically. The ceiling is not only a spending problem, it is an identity problem. The level of lifestyle a person believes they deserve, the standard of living they feel entitled to at a given income level, determines the ceiling more precisely than any financial calculation. When income resize and identity says, "This is the life I now deserve," the ceiling resize immediately, automatically, without decision, without pause. But when income resize and identity says this, surplus belongs to the future, not to now, the ceiling stays. The gap widens. Wealth forms. This is not a financial technique. It is an identity transformation. And it begins with one question that the ancient wisdom tradition placed at the foundation of every wealth principle it recorded. Who are you building this for? That question will determine everything that follows. Who are you building this for? That question is not rhetorical. It is structural. Because the answer determines the time horizon. And the time horizon determines everything about how money is handled. The person building for the next purchase operates in weeks. The person building for the next year operates in months. But the person building for the next generation, the one who is absorbed, fully and without resistance, the ancient understanding of wealth operates in decades. And when you operate in decades, almost every financial decision changes. The urgency to upgrade disappears. The pressure to signal dissolves. The need for external validation of financial progress loses its grip. Because the goal is no longer visible, it is not a car in the driveway or a number of square feet under a roof. The goal is structural. It is quiet. It is the slow, deliberate widening of the gap between what comes in and what is allowed to expand outward. This is generational thinking and is the foundation of every durable wealth tradition the ancient world documented. Solomon did not write about how to earn more. He wrote about how to keep, grow, and pass on what was already earned. The merchant families of the ancient world were not celebrated for their income. They were studied for their discipline, for the way wealth moved quietly through their structures, compounding slowly, protected from the loudness of unnecessary spending. Wealth is a time strategy, not an income event. Now the deeper structural layer becomes clear. If the first principle is that lifestyle must grow slower than income, the second principle is this: every income increase must first raise assets before it raises lifestyle. Not eventually, not later, when things are more stable. First, this is the sequence that separates the income earner from the wealth builder. It is not the amount, it is the order of operations. When a raise arrives, the income earner adjusts lifestyle. A better apartment is considered. A newer vehicle feels appropriate. The additional income creates an immediate sense of expanded permission to live at a higher level, to consume at a higher rate, to signal a new tier of success. And so the raise disappears. Not through waste, not through our responsibility, but through the perfectly natural, socially encouraged expansion of lifestyle to meet available income. The wealth builder follows a different sequence. When income increases, the first movement is not outward into lifestyle. It is inward into structure. A portion of the increase is directed immediately into assets, savings, investments, instruments that hold value and, over time, produce more value. Only after that allocation is made does any conversation about lifestyle adjustment begin. This is what ancient wisdom called tending the field before the harvest. You do not consume the seed. You plant it first, and you wait. The waiting is not passive. It is disciplined. It is the active choice, made repeatedly, to delay visible reward in favor of invisible accumulation. Consider the illustrative contrast. Two workers receive the same salary increase. Both have worked for the same number of years. Both are competent, honest, and hardworking. The first worker celebrates the raise by upgrading his living situation. He moves to a larger apartment in a better neighborhood. He buys a newer car. He starts eating at better restaurants. He dresses differently. His visible life changes in ways that feel like the natural arrival of deserved success. 5 years later, he receives another raise. The same pattern follows. His lifestyle has now expanded twice. His fixed monthly obligations have risen significantly both times. He works harder each year and yet feels, persistently, that he is never quite far enough ahead. The second worker receives the same raise. He moves a fixed percentage quietly, automatically, into an account that he does not touch. His lifestyle does not change noticeably. He continues in the same apartment for another 2 years. He keeps the same car. From the outside, nothing appears to have changed. 5 years later, he receives another raise. The same discipline follows. The same quiet allocation. The same unchanged lifestyle. After 15 years, the first worker has a fuller life by every visible measure. He has also, structurally, built almost nothing that does not depend on his next paycheck. The second worker, by every visible measure, appears to have made less progress. What he has actually built is a financial foundation that no single missed paycheck can destroy. This is not a story about deprivation. It is a story about sequence, about order, about who controls the money and when. Here is where the psychological layer becomes essential. The wealth ceiling is not only structural, it is psychological. And the psychological ceiling is, in many ways, the more powerful one. Because the structural ceiling, the fixed expenses, the lifestyle obligations, the monthly commitments that consume income, these can be adjusted. They are real, but they are movable. What is harder to move is the internal sense of what a person believes they deserve to consume at a given income level. This is the deepest mechanism. A person who earns a certain income develops, over time, an identity attached to a certain lifestyle level. That lifestyle becomes not a choice, but an expectation. It becomes the baseline. And any income that arrives above that baseline is experienced not as surplus to be preserved, but as permission to expand the baseline upward. The psychological ceiling is the belief that comfort must always meet income. To dismantle this ceiling, something more fundamental than financial strategy is required. What is required is a quiet, sustained rewiring of what wealth feels like from the inside. Wealth does not feel like abundance in the moment it is being built. It feels like restraint. It feels like living below what the environment suggests is available. It feels, at times, like invisibility because the progress is happening in places that carry no social signal. No visible marker, no external confirmation. The ancient wisdom traditions understood this. They framed wealth as a form of inner discipline before it was ever a form of outer accumulation. The man who could not govern his own appetite could not govern his wealth. The man who needed external validation of his progress would spend that progress purchasing the validation. Silence protects wealth. Not silence as secrecy. Silence as the absence of the need for external confirmation. This reframes entirely what is often called the hustle mentality. The dominant modern belief is that wealth is a product of effort. Work harder, earn more, and wealth follows. This is not entirely wrong. Effort matters. Income matters. But effort without structure only raises income. It does not raise wealth. A man can work harder every year for 30 years and have almost nothing to show for it. If his lifestyle has risen at the same rate as his income throughout that time, he has exchanged decades of effort for decades of comfort. The comfort was real. The wealth was not built. Structure, by contrast, creates wealth even without extraordinary income. A modest income, carefully managed with the gap protected, with the asset allocation made first, with the lifestyle ceiling held firm while income grows above it, will produce genuine financial durability over time. Not dramatically, not visibly, but permanently. Control creates wealth. Effort alone does not. Now the daily ritual. This is where principle becomes practice. And the practice is simpler than most people expect. Every time income arrives, a fixed portion must leave immediately. Before any spending, before any obligation is reviewed. Before any decision about lifestyle is made, not whatever is left at the end of the month, not the surplus, if a surplus exists, a fixed portion, moved first, automatically, to a structure that is separated from daily spending. This single behavior, practiced without exception, does two things simultaneously. It builds the asset base slowly and consistently, regardless of income level. And it prevents the full income from ever feeling available for consumption, which limits lifestyle expansion at the source. The ancient principle behind this is sometimes called the first fruits offering, the practice of giving to preservation before giving to consumption. The first portion does not go to lifestyle. It goes to the structure that will outlast lifestyle. This is not a financial strategy invented by modern advisors. It is a principle recorded in ancient wisdom texts across multiple traditions, because the observers of human behavior recognized that what is spent first is spent always, and what is preserved first is preserved consistently. Small, repeated discipline becomes permanent wealth, not because the amounts are large, because the behavior is consistent, because the gap is protected every single time, not only when it is convenient or when the amount feels significant. One warning must be stated clearly. Impatience will be the primary threat to this structure, not market conditions. Not income level, impatience. Because the results of this discipline are not visible for a long time, the gap being protected does not announce itself. The asset base being built does not signal its growth to the outside world. And because modern life is built around visible, immediate markers of progress, the absence of visible change will feel, at times, like the absence of progress. It is not. The discipline working quietly below the surface is doing exactly what it is supposed to do. The ceiling is holding while income grows above it. The gap is widening. The structure is forming. But it will not feel dramatic. It will not feel like the descriptions of success that culture broadcasts. It will feel unremarkable. And that feeling, the unremarkable, quiet, consistent practice of preserving the gap is precisely the feeling that durable wealth is built from. Anyone can maintain discipline when the results are immediate and visible. The test of wealth character is whether discipline is maintained when the results are invisible and distant. The whys increase slowly, but permanently. There is a final observation worth sitting with. 2 men receive an increase in their means. The first man increases his spending. His life changes visibly. People notice. He feels the reward of his progress immediately. 5 years pass, 10 years pass. His life looks successful. His finances remain fragile. The second man increases his assets. His life does not change visibly. People notice nothing. He feels no immediate external reward. 5 years pass. 10 years pass. His life looks ordinary. His finances are not. The difference between these 2 men was not talent. It was not fortune. It was not even the size of their income. It was one decision, made repeatedly, over a long period of time, in the absence of external applause. Wealth is not built when income resource. Wealth is built when lifestyle does not. This is not a modern discovery. It is not a financial innovation. It is one of the oldest observations about human behavior ever recorded. It was understood by ancient merchants and ancient kings alike. By the families whose names survive for generations because their wealth survived for generations. They did not build loud lives. They built durable ones. Income is loud. Wealth is quiet. The gap becomes the fortune. Discipline raises the ceiling. Generational thinkers move differently. And now, having understood the mechanism, you are no longer simply earning. You are building. Wealth is not built when income rises. Wealth is built when lifestyle does not. Share this with someone still chasing income.